Mm. This is one of the, well, I never thought I would ever be saying these words. Welcome to my YouTube channel. But this has been a long time coming, and I think nothing happens in your life where there's not a reason for it, and you have to find that purpose. And I've decided to share my journey with those who it will help. And so here goes. Um, I have a son who is 15. He's autistic. He's severely autistic. He's nonverbal, has behavioral issues. He's also has epilepsy, which is a result of his autism. Epilepsy was diagnosed later. So he's had epilepsy. He was diagnosed with epilepsy around 6 years ago. He was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. So I think I'm quite in the loop as to what autism is and how it can be. My son isn't Rain Man. He's not a savant. He doesn't possess this amazing skill where he can remember everything. He can't cite he can't draw buildings from memory. That's not the autism that my son has. Unfortunately, that is the autism that is highlighted in the media. When I tell people my son has autism, they say, "Oh, he must be good at something. What is his talent?" I'm like, "No. He doesn't have a talent. He has autism." And for years, it took a while for people around me to actually get what autism is. And these are people that are around me and who sees my daily struggle, who sees how my son struggles daily. But they never understood it because they still had the notion or the idea of autism they had is Rain Man or the savants they see that's on TV. And I think that is so unfair to parents like myself who have children who are nonverbal, who have children who struggle with processing, who study with noise, who study daily, who has meltdowns that you don't understand what they're for. But unfortunately, the media doesn't highlight that type of autism. So when they see my child, or when people see my child and his behaviors, when he was much younger, a lot of people judged me and thought it was down to my parenting. Well, bad parenting. And as a result of that and feeling judged, I pulled away from everyone and become a bit of a recluse. And sadly, over the years, I tend to kind of stay by myself or just stare on a few people because I always feel like I'm being judged even when I'm not. But trauma, that's what happens. I think sharing my experience is going to help people, and that's the reason why I'm doing this. Because if you check statistics, I think the last time I checked, it was 1 in 50 children are diagnosed yearly with autism. 1 in 50. Don't quote me on that. It might be higher, it might be lower, but the last time I checked. I'm not going to be able to provide you the most recent statistics and stuff like that. What I can provide you with is my daily life, what has happened in the past 15 years with my son. If I can help someone with anything, if I can be encouraging to anyone who's going through their journey, that's what my channel is going to be about. Um, so yeah, I'm not gonna show my son at his worst. So I'm not gonna document him having meltdowns, but I'm gonna talk about his meltdowns. You might hear his meltdowns. You might hear how I deal with it, but I will never, in a sense, put my child out there like that because I have to protect him. That's my job. So I'm not going to show him at his worst. That is not for the world to see, but I will tell you how he is at his worst. Um yeah, so that's it. So just a little bit more background information my on my son and on our autism journey. I had my son I conceived at 21, had him at 22. He was diagnosed when he was 3 years old. Um, the thing is, and this is why I say always follow your gut instinct. As a young mother in a country, because I moved here very young, no family, I was living in the countryside, I was an army wife, you feel it's very isolating. Then I had my son, and it's like, oh, this is what it was so, I don't know how to explain it. You when you have a child, you love that child. But in the media at the time, I remember autism was, I think it was just popping up and they were linking it to MMR. And it stuck with me. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to give my child that. I'm not going to give my child that MMR. I'm not going to say there is a link between autism and MMR. I'm not going to say that. There hasn't been any strong evidence to suggest that. But what I will say, mothers of children with autism has always maintained that there is a correlation, and it's important to really pay attention to parents. They know their kids, and I think that's where everything has gone wrong, and why there can't be any new knowledge around autism, because mothers' inputs or experiences are being dismissed. So I'm not saying there's a correlation, but I think if you have thousands or hundreds of thousands of mothers or parents are saying my child changed after having this vaccine, I think it's something that should be looked in and looked into very deeply. But I don't think that has ever happened. That has never happened. So government maintained that there is no correlation, there is no link. However, I personally think that there's some kids are allergic to the MMR, and as a result of having that allergic reaction, it may help to contribute to autism. That might not be the only factor. There might be environmental factor, and there might be some hereditary factors as well, even though they have never been able to find a gene that causes autism. However, there's some evidence that there might be one or there might be two or more people in a family with autism, but that is not in every case. Okay, so that's the little knowledge I know around that. And for years, as a mom, do you know what? I remember when my son was diagnosed. I remember what I wore. I remember what day it was. I remember the questions I asked. I remember how I cried. And I remembered saying to the pediatrician, I'm like, he's not going to know that something is wrong with him. I am the one who's going to live with this disability. And at the time, I was so angry about that. And now that is the greatest blessing for me, because my people are going to be horrible to him, and he might pick up on some of that if it's immediate people. But people who might call him names, he will never understand that, so he will not get that hurt. And I'm so glad that he doesn't have to experience that. I do, and I hope I can deal with that as time goes on. Well, I have been. And I just remembered feeling so alone. I felt so alone. I felt so hopeless. I felt helpless. It's nothing that I would ever wish on anyone, to go through something like that alone. And I had to go through that alone. With my child, they gave me this diagnosis and they sent me on my way. At 24 years old, they gave me this diagnosis with my child, sent me on my way. Back then in 2007, it's not with, we didn't have the era of smartphones where you can just tap in and find all this information out. It was a lot of going to the library, reading books. It was the knowledge that's out there now, the information, sorry, that's out there now wasn't as readily available back then. So you can only imagine as a parent how that is. You see your child growing and he's not doing the things that he's supposed to do. All the skills that he had, he lost. My son had words, he lost words, his behavior changed. I remember he went through a period of having night terrors every single night, and waking up screaming. There's nothing I could do. I didn't know what to do. I would just cry with him. So we went through a period of that. Then he went to food aversions where he wouldn't eat anything. I didn't know what to do, what to give to him. And he went through a period where he wanted to go to the corner store all the time to get the same books, and he would just rip the pages out and line them up. And I had no clue what was happening. This was my child, and I had no clue what was happening. So, looking back, I really don't know how I got through that, because I love, and I love my child so much, so much, and I would do anything just for him to be normal. I kept thinking I would do anything, I would do anything, I would do anything just to have my child be normal. He looked normal. He looked normal, and that is what was so hard, because people would see him behaving and they would look at me and they would look at him like, why is he behaving like that? And that's one of the hardest things that comes with autism. If you have a child who looks typical, and then they start behaving a certain way, people associate disability to something being physical, and it's not always physical. So I know this is gonna be a lengthy video where I'm all over the place, but hopefully, as I continue to speak more or do more vlogs, there will be more themes and there will be more topics that I address. But it's kind of hard now to just focus on one specific thing, because I just want to give a background of what our journey has been and how we got to this point where we are now. Where we are now, it's hard. Autism is winning right now. It is hard. Being a teenager is hard enough. Being a teenager with autism is a million times harder. It's a million times harder. And I'm taking each day as it comes. And in a way, I think this is going to be very cathartic for me as well, because I'll get to feel like I have support. Hopefully, anyone, if it's 10 people, 15 people watches this video, I'm just trying to create a community or just a support system for us mothers who are going through. You might be a parent who just got the diagnosis. You might be a parent whose child has had the diagnosis for years now, but you're still lost. You're still in the grieving process, because I had to go through the grieving process. I remembered everything about the grieving purpose. You blame, you bargain. So you're saying, God, I will do this if you do that. Then you find somebody to blame. You have to go through the grieving process, because you were grieving the child you thought you had, that you would raise, that you would mold, that you would mold to be this person, is not the child that you end up having. You get a different child, and it takes a while to adapt. It takes a while to adapt, because even though you're mourning the child, every day comes new challenges, every single day. So you're like, oh, what next? Oh, what next? My son went through a period where he was biting everybody. And as I said, there will be a lot that I will discuss. So I'm new to this. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, but what I do have is experience. What I do have is a child with autism that no one speaks about. And what I am is real. And I'm gonna give you as it is. I've never sugarcoated anyone. I know I'm an excellent mother to my son. I love my son. And I think when you have a child with autism, there's a bond there. You're his brain in a sense, and it's like there's a connection there. I don't think anyone gets it. My son doesn't have much words, but I understand everything he says. I understand everything he says, everything he mutters. I understand him. I understand him. And I don't know how to explain it. And I think that just comes from being it just comes from a place of love. I really don't know how to explain it. I really don't know how to explain it. But the reason for me wanting to do this video and trying to see if I can help anyone out there, as I said, it doesn't matter how much I help, how little I help, even if it's one person, if I can be of encouragement, if I can help them to find strength on the day that they want to give up, because your child may not be nonverbal for their entire lives. There are things now, there's so many therapies, there's so many different things that is out there now that can help kids as long as they get an early diagnosis and intervention is put in place. I never had that with my child. As I'm saying, they offered speech therapy, but speech therapy was offered, but that was just playing with the child. And they just put him in a special needs school. That was it. So a lot of things were not explored with my son because, it wasn't I guess it was prevalent then, but people were still trying to figure out what it was. And I think even now they still don't know what it is. They really still don't know, and that is the thing that is very frustrating, and will continue to frustrate a lot of parents because we keep having more kids diagnosed with autism, but there's no there's I don't think there's enough research going into it, and because it's not an illness that's gonna kill them, so there's not a lot of funding going towards it. And the only time you hear about autism in the media or anything like that is if a celebrity's child has autism. That's when you hear about it. Common folk like me and my experiences and what I'm going through, that obviously that's not going to be highlighted. And there's thousands of mothers like me, hundreds of thousands of parents like me who is going through this and unfortunately will go through what I've been through. And sadly, they might not have the strength that I have, or not everybody is built for this. And that's one of the things I'm grateful for, that as much as it's hard, I've taken it on, and I've taken it on because what am I going to do? There is no other way. I have to take it on, and I have to be there for my child. I have to advocate for him. I have to fight so much for my son. I have to fight so much for my son. And that's the reason I got into the medical profession, because I'm like, if I know the ins and outs of how the system works, this is how I'm going to be able to help my child. So that's that. Everything I do, most decisions I make it based on how it's gonna help my child. How is it gonna help Tariq if I do this? How is it gonna help him? Career choices, everything. My son is at the center of that. So my son doing this, my son is at the center of that, because as I said before, this is going to be very cathartic for me. If I have a medium in which I can explain, if I can talk, if I can be real, if I feel, I know I'm going to be judged, because in the world of social media, everybody has something to say. So I know that and I expect that. But obviously, I'll be able to filter those people out. But yeah. So what I'd like you guys to do is to follow my subscribe. Is it subscribe? Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just follow our journey. If you know a friend, if you know a relative, or anyone who is going through their autism journey, they might just got a diagnosis. And I know a lot of people, they might have a child, they don't even know that the child has autism. So just direct them to to this channel, and hopefully they'll get a little bit more insight. So even if they haven't got a formal diagnosis, they can kind of start doing certain things to kind of get back some of that child that they had. Because knowing what I know now, my son autism would not be as severe as it is. I'm not saying that I would be able to get rid of it, but who knows? With the information that I know now and the strength that I have now, because having the information and not applying it is, it's pointless. And I think autism diagnosis can completely break you. It can completely break you, where you might have all this information, but you just can't find the strength to apply it because you're so broken. You are so broken because you might have a child that you want to teach who has no interest. They just want to run from one point of the room to the next. So it's not always about having the information, it's just finding the strength to fight and getting and doing the best for your child. So I know I'm rambling and this video is all over the place. I am very aware of that. But as I said, this is just a synopsis in a sense as to what I hope to bring to the channel. And over time, as I said, it will be more focused on different areas. So it might be about going through puberty. It might be its early stages. How long did it take for the diagnosis? What interventions I've used? What interventions he's getting? What else? Food. When do I see changes in behavior? What do I do to help? How do I help his meltdowns? How do I get him to go about and just be a part of society and stuff like that? So they're definitely gonna, the content is gonna be a lot more structured, so I can help you guys and make sure that I address different topics properly. So yeah, I can't believe I've actually done this. I'm very proud of myself. And going forward, hopefully we get to a place where we're there for each other, and it will be, you will get something from my channel. And over time we'll grow, our community will grow, and over time, who knows, our kids with autism, they might there might be something that changes their lives where they can be the best version of themselves, even though that's what I aim for every day with my son. He's not going to be a lawyer, he's not going to be a doctor, as long as he's happy and the best version of himself. Because your expectations have to change when you have a child with autism. It doesn't mean that you gave up on your child, but your expectation changes. And that's okay. That's okay if you have to change your expectations. It's okay. And it took me a while. It took me a while to realize that. But yeah. So I don't know how I'm gonna upload this video. I have made the video. Let's see.